By far the most requested sequel to part 1 of this series of ranking the horror years. I did the 2000s first because that is my favorite decade, so I decided to start with the hardest one. But by far the most requested after that was the 2010s. So that's what we're gonna do. If you missed part 1, basically I am ranking the horror decades from worst to best, and this is based on a couple of things. Firstly, my favorite movies that come out in whatever year, and also I try to use a little bit of objectivity in this ranking and take note of the most notable horror movies that are released that year and which years might have had the most impact on the horror genre itself. And just keep in mind, this is still my opinion at the end of the day. I can use as much objectivity as to what movies I think are the most notable and impactful to the genre, but it's still based in opinion, so this is my ranking. So I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below, and make sure that you request the next decade in the comments as well and vote which one you want me to cover next. As usual, it's impossible to name every single iconic movie, horror movie that comes out in any given year. I'm going to skip a lot. I just pulled the ones that I really like. I tried to choose some underrated gems. And this time I'm actually including bad movies in some of the years because I just can't ignore that some years had really bad releases. Dare I say the 2010s had some of the scariest movies that I've ever seen, but I will tell you what is scarier: when you need care and you can't get it soon enough. Luckily, today's video is sponsored by ZocDoc, which makes it super easy to find appointments quickly. I just turned 35 and my health has never been more at the forefront of my mind, and making sure I go to regular doctor checkups and getting my exams and also getting care quickly when I need it has become such a priority. This sounds silly, but this last week I had a little run-in with a bee, okay? If you've been following along on my Instagram stories, I got stung by a bee and my earlobe is still twice the size that it normally is. And I started to get a little bit worried that it was getting infected, and I usually opt to wait it out because I'm usually intimidated by the entire process of having to call a doctor's office, not knowing which department to call. I always call the wrong place no matter what, and it always ends up being a stressful situation trying to find the right place to call and set up an appointment to get things checked out. But with ZocDoc, it makes it so easy because you can book everything right on their website. ZocDoc is a free website where you can compare high-quality doctors who are either in your network or take your insurance. You can find the right one for your needs. You can book directly online so you're not calling different departments or calling the wrong places. From mental health to dental health, from eye care to skin care, ZocDoc has over 100,000 healthcare providers in nearly every specialty. I always try to find doctors, and specifically dentists, who are really understanding and really listen, because I struggle with anxiety, so I know how important that can be. I mean, we're talking about your health at the end of the day. And you can filter through doctors who take your insurance, who are located close by to you or come highly recommended by other people. And you can see their actual appointment times online and book the appointment right there, right then and there on the website. So whether you need a female doctor, an LGBTQ friendly therapist, or any specialist that's tailored to your needs, ZocDoc makes it super easy to find the right provider for you. Plus, the really cool part is ZocDoc appointments happen super fast, usually within 24 to 72 hours of booking the appointment, and sometimes you can even get a same-day appointment. So stop putting off those doctor appointments. It's 2025. We are taking our health very seriously. So make sure you go to ZocDoc.com/horror. It's also linked in the description down below, and you can book an appointment with a top-rated doctor today. So thanks again to ZocDoc for sponsoring. Let's get back to today's video. Like I did with the 2000s, we are going to be starting with the worst year and work our way to the best year. You know what I also thought about is, what if at the very end of this series, I do a battle of the best years? I take the best years from every decade, in my opinion, and put them against each other and rank those years. Now, unlike the 2000s, the 2010s had a very clear bottom year, and I'm sad to say that, but it was just very apparent. I don't know if it's because I don't like the 2010s as much as the 2000s, because the 2000s, like I said, was like ranking children. The 2010s was not really that difficult, if I'm being honest. So the clear bottom year of the 2010s was 2015. Again, disclaimer, every year had standouts. Every year there were good movies released, okay? And I think the two most notable movies of 2015 was definitely Krampus Krampus, for one. I think that has become a very classic Christmas viewing for a lot of people, including myself. And also Robert Eggers' The Witch. Now this has turned into a love or hate kind of movie, but I think that goes without saying for every Robert Eggers movie. It's always going to be a love or a hate movie. The other two really great movies from this year, in my opinion, I would say Green Room. I love Green Room. I think it's very violent. And also The Gift, which I think it definitely leans a little bit more on the psychological twisty thriller side, but still a great movie. Speaking of psychological twisty thriller, The Invitation also came out in 2015, which I think is a pretty underrated movie. Lots of sequels in 2015. This decade continues the sequel train. We get sequels non-stop since forever. So we have Sinister 2, which is definitely not as good or scary as the original. We have Insidious Chapter 3. We have Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. Those are the major sequels of 2015. And then we also this is kind of a year for found footage as well. So we have The Gallows, which I hated when I watched in the movie theater, but I think has turned into kind of a guilty pleasure type of movie. Then we have The Visit by M. Night Shyamalan, which I hate. I really don't like The Visit. You'd think M. Night Shyamalan found footage movie for Sarah, but I don't like it. And then we also have Be My Cat, A Film for Anne, which is definitely an underrated, disturbing found footage movie if you're looking for something a little darker. And then we have a category which I like to call vibe movies of 2015. Okay, we have Crimson Peak, beautiful, gothic, atmospheric, weird kind of movie. And then we have The Black Coat's Daughter, again, very atmospheric. The Final Girls was released in 2015, which is a horror comedy, almost parody of horror. That movie came out. That one's fine. I think it's okay. And then The Lazarus Effect, which came out, and actually upon rewatch, I don't think it's as bad as I remember it. So I think it's actually an okay film. And then we have underrated Tales of Halloween, which I have recommended in the past for a nice October viewing if you're looking for more Halloween movies. Next up is a year that should not be ranked as low as it is, and that is 2013. Now you might be asking, Sarah, isn't 2013 the year The Conjuring came out? Yes, it is. That's just how bad the other movies are on this list. Or rather, how few good movies came out in 2013. Again, this ranking is my opinion, okay? So next we have The Evil Dead Remake. The Evil Dead Remake came out in 2013. I think that is the next largest standout movie of the year, next to The Conjuring, of course. And then I'm gonna say Mike Flanagan's Oculus was another great release of 2013. I think it's one of his underrated films. And then I also personally loved Mama. Mama was in my top 3 movies of all time for so long. I saw it twice in theaters when it came out. I was obsessed. And that's it for the really good movies of 2013, I'm gonna say. But there are a lot of other okay movies. So let's talk about the sequels. So get those out of the way. Again, every year we have 1,000,001 sequels. Haunting in Connecticut 2, Insidious Chapter 2, Last Exorcism Part 2, VHS 2. I think that's all the sequels of 2013. And we have a couple horror action movies this year. We have the original Purge, which came out. I'm not a huge fan of the Purge franchise by any means. And then we also got World War Z, which is a zombie apocalyptic action horror movie. The Carrie remake of 2013. Probably the worst remake, one of the worst remakes I've ever seen, and Stephen King adaptations I've ever seen. Texas Chainsaw 3D, unpopular opinion, I didn't think it was that bad. I actually had a lot of fun with this one, and yes, of course, there's some cheesy lines that people love to throw out there. I had fun with it. I don't think it's that bad. And then my underrated gem pick of 2013 is definitely Willow Creek. This is a found footage movie set in Northern California, camping vibes, genuinely horrifying. There is a single long take inside the tent that was so unsettling and so effective. I never thought a Bigfoot movie would scare me, but here we are. Now, next up we have 2011. I hate to rank 2011 this low because that is the year that I started doing horror content online. That's when I began this channel. So 2011 has a soft spot in my heart when it comes to horror. And this is a year that if I was going just on the movies that I personally enjoyed, this would probably be ranked a little bit higher, but I don't think it was impactful in the genre or as impactful as other years coming up. So we had more found footage movies in 2011. Paranormal Activity 3 was released. We have The Tunnel, which is a great underrated Australian found footage movie. And then Apollo 18 I also think is pretty solid. Again, underrated, but it's a found footage movie set on the moon. Then, of course, we have Grave Encounters, which is just a personal favorite found footage movie of mine, and easily one of the best found footage movies of the entire decade. Other movies that I think were standouts of the year, we have You're Next, which is a horror comedy. I think this one holds up so well and remains kind of timeless. Then we have The Thing prequel, which I absolutely love. Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I mean, The Thing is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The prequel is so good, despite them going for CGI over practical effects. And then we have Red State, which is a very underrated, probably hits a little too close to home by the name of that movie. You could probably guess why, but John Goodman, just such an incredible film. Final Destination 5, I think, is a pretty good installment in the franchise, honestly. And then Scream 4 was released in 2011 as well. We also have Human Centipede 2, which is one of the most disturbing movies I have ever seen. And then I have 3 underrated gems to recommend from 2011. First, we have Absentia by Mike Flanagan. It is actually his first movie ever made, and the quality is very low budget, but I think you can still tell it's Mike Flanagan, and I love his storytelling. His storytelling will always be top tier. And then we have The Awakening with Rebecca Hall. Rebecca Hall is one of those actors who is an auto watch for me. If she is in anything, I will watch it. But The Awakening is more of like a gothic, atmospheric, kind of eerie movie. And then lastly, The Innkeepers, which is by Ty West, and I think it's one of his underrated movies. Really easy for beginners. It's nothing too scary, but something about it is still very captivating to me and really entertaining. Next up, we have 2010. I think 2010 is most notable because of Insidious. The first Insidious was released this year. Of course, Insidious is one of the most iconic horror movies of the entire decade, and that's just if we're talking about the actually good movies, because this year is also made famous by a Serbian film, which we don't discuss or talk about on this channel. We do have a couple found footage movies. We have The Last Exorcism, which is, again, one of my favorites, top tier found footage movie. Paranormal Activity 2, and we also have Troll Hunter, which I just watched this last year, and I absolutely love. That movie is so fun, still has some horrifying elements. It feels very realistic, even though it's literally about trolls. Just such an underrated pick. And Tucker and Dale vs. Evil will always have a special place in my heart. That was one of my top movies when I started this channel. It's such an iconic dark comedy film, and I feel like as a society we're kind of forgetting about Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, but I loved this when I began my horror journey. Next we have The Crazies, which I do really like, and then we also have Frozen, which is an underrated like winter movie, and fun fact, that is the first movie I ever reviewed on this channel. Saw 3D was released this year, and definitely dates the movie and the franchise, I would say. Anything that came out in 3D around this time, around 2010, definitely it feels dated. It will always feel dated. Black Swan also came out in 2010. This is still one I have never seen. Can you believe that? I feel like I need to fix that very soon. I don't know why I've never seen it either. A couple lesser known movies that came out in 2010. We have John Carpenter's The Ward. I honestly can't remember if it was good or not. I have seen it, but don't remember anything about it really. And then we also have The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. I think that most people don't really like this one, but I think it's actually pretty good. I love a good werewolf movie regardless. I think we're at the halfway point now. I think we have 2016. This is one of my personal favorite years, I would say, and I think I would rank it a little bit higher, again, if I was just going off of movies I enjoy. I think the most famous movie from 2016 is probably M. Night Shyamalan's Split. A lot of people talked about that when it was released. And then as well as maybe Mike Flanagan's Hush. Oh, and The Conjuring 2 came out in 2016, which is the best Conjuring movie still to this day. As far as personal favorites of the year, I would say Blair Witch, the sequel from 2016, one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. Okay, first of all, it's obviously found footage, so I'm a little bit biased, but I love anything to do with Blair Witch, anything. Literally, if it's bad, I don't care. Blair Witch is there, I'm there. 10 Cloverfield Lane is easily the best Cloverfield movie. It's not a found footage. It has John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Such a good plot. I think it's also good for horror beginners. There's like a thrilling aspect to it that makes it feel a little bit more like psychological than true horror, but it has a really cool ending as well. And I just love 10 Cloverfield Lane. Super underrated. Train to Busan. I recently watched this last year, and yeah, one of my favorites easily from the entire decade. Ouija Origin of Evil is probably written off by a lot of people because the original Ouija is so bad, but Origin of Evil is directed by Mike Flanagan. So there we have his storytelling yet again. 2010s really is Mike Flanagan's era. Speaking of bad movies though, like Ouija, which, you know, we'll talk about later in the video. Let's talk about other bad movies that came out in 2016. The Cabin Fever remake. Unnecessary. The Martyrs remake, again, unnecessary and insulting. The Boy. I'm sorry, I've never been a fan of The Boy. Also, Don't Breathe. I'm sorry. I want to like this movie so bad because I like the premise, but I have tried rewatching it and I still give it 3 stars. It's just fine. It's okay, but it's not anything mind-blowing. And then they ruined it all with the sequel. The sequel killed it for me. The Belko Experiment, though, I did have different opinion on when I rewatched it. It's a fun movie, okay? The first time I watched it, I was like, it's not that great. But then I bought it and, you know, I rewatch it. It's kind of a comfy movie. I don't know why. Lights Out also came out this year. And again, I wanted to love that one more than I did because it seems like on paper, everything I should love in a horror movie, but it just didn't do too much for me. Also, how could I forget to mention that Terrifier came out in 2016? It's probably, as of now, really, really iconic, but at the time, it was an underrated gem. Can you believe a time existed when Terrifier was seen as a bad, underrated movie? Yep. Now, the 2010s were also riddled with atmospheric horror movies, again, kind of vibey movies. So firstly, we have I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Such a slow burn, but one of the most beautiful movies to look at I have ever seen. I loved the house. I loved the lighting. I just love so much about this movie. The Void is a very strange cosmic horror. The Neon Demon, unsettling again, but also very vibey. Beautiful. The coloring, the lighting is gorgeous. The Love Witch, which is very stylistic, you know, kind of seems like it's taking place in the 70s or filmed in the 70s. I think it's really cool. I have still never seen that one. Maybe I'll have to correct that soon as well. And I'm gonna say The Autopsy of Jane Doe was also very atmospheric, very chilling. I didn't find it as scary as some people, but I did rewatch it as well, and I think it's a really great movie. Also, Raw came out in 2016. I haven't seen that one either, but I wanted to mention it because it's pretty iconic, and maybe I'll watch it soon, even though I know it's very disturbing. I'm getting kind of more back into disturbing stuff. Next is 2017. The year that Get Out came out, the year that Jordan Peele began his horror career and kind of changed things, if I'm being honest. I think Jordan Peele has had a huge impact on the genre. I know not all of his movies are well loved or widely loved, but Get Out was definitely his best movie and I think his most loved movie. And I think that movie alone makes 2017 a pretty iconic year. Also, the It remake came out in 2017, which is another huge standout for me in the year. Now, some of my personal favorites of the year were definitely Life, which is a sci-fi space horror, has Jake Gyllenhaal in it. So good. I love that one. Also, The Ritual. I love this movie even more having read the book. The book was fantastic, 5 stars, some of the best writing I've ever read. Rings came out in 2017, so that is a personal favorite of mine, although most people would say it is not good. Anything to do with The Ring, obviously I'm gonna be there. Is it a little cheesy at times? Yeah. Is it a little dated? Sure. But seeing Samara on the big screen meant everything to me. I have to give a shout out to Mother, because no movie has ever affected me the way that that movie did. Now let's talk about sequels for a minute. So we have Alien Covenant. I genuinely love all of the Alien sequels. I think they're all really good or have some kind of value to them. Then we have Annabelle Creation, which again, I love the Annabelle series for some reason. They just really work for me. I'm not sure why. I don't normally love like doll movies. I don't find them scary, but the Annabelle series is so good. And then we have Creep 2, which I don't love as much as the original Creep, but it is still pretty good. It's found footage still. And then Cult of Chucky, which I did not even realize was so recent. How is Cult... Is that even right? Cult of Chucky 2017? That just seems so weird. Cult of Chucky seems like it should have come out in like 2011. I don't know, is that just me? We got a Jigsaw movie as well as a Leatherface movie. Both movies were kind of forgettable and just okay. Okay, some other popular releases of 2017. We have The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which I'm gonna be honest, never finished it. It's pretty unbearable to me. Very pretentious, artsy film. Could not finish it. Happy Death Day came out. I already talked about how I feel about those movies. Gerald's Game, which is a great Stephen King adaptation. And The Endless. I don't know, is that popular? Is The Endless popular? I don't know that it is. But again, kind of cosmic-y horror, slower burn, but beautiful. Beautiful film. Highly recommend it. Next, we have a couple movies that are so bad they're good. I think the 2010s gave us so many guilty pleasure horror movies that are so bad that they end up being good, or that we find some kind of entertainment in. So we have The Bye Bye Man. I'm gonna say it. I have rewatched this many times, okay? Wish Upon. I know it's bad. Now for underrated picks, I recommend Terrified, which is an Argentinian movie I just watched last year. I think that one is really great. As well as Phoenix Forgotten. It is a found footage alien movie. And lastly, the anthology film XX, where every short is directed by a woman. I highly recommend that one. Okay, now we're gonna be jumping backwards, back to 2014. Next is 2014. Now this year was a great balance of movies that I really love personally, and that also were pretty popular and helped define the genre. This is a great year. I think most notably, we have It Follows. I think this one definitely had such an impact. It got non-horror fans into horror. It was just so different and so unique, and you know, other movies try to copy it still and try to do the same formula, but nothing will compare to It Follows. And then as well as The Babadook. I think The Babadook also, it was kind of this, I mean, we've always had movies about grief and loss in some way. Horror, has been about that for a long time. But The Babadook had such an impact because it was like that first literal portrayal of grief, and I loved it. Found footage. This was such a solid year for found footage, man, let me tell you. As Above, So Below, one of my personal favorites and most rewatched found footage movies. As well as Creep, again, I'm glad it's much more popular now because it definitely deserves it. So good. And then The Taking of Deborah Logan, which I think should be more popular. That one deserves to be more popular as well. It is horrifying. I absolutely love it. Starry Eyes was released in 2014. This used to be one of my favorite underrated gems to recommend. I haven't talked about it in a really long time, but again, so good, so underrated. And then we were all collectively unsettled and disturbed by Tusk. Even the concept alone, I think people were like, whoa, no thank you. But again, something different. I think 2014 was all about new, innovative horror, and this year I feel like is really the foundation of the 2010s. I think it had the most iconic original movies. We do have the original Annabelle movie as well as a couple other sequels such as Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, not my favorite of the franchise. We also have The Purge Anarchy. Don't really care about the Purge franchise. The original Ouija movie did come out this year though, and it is not good. It is very bad. And then we have so many underrated movies this year as well. We have Clown, which very dark. We have Don't Blink, which is one of those that I think only I have seen. Housebound, which is a horror comedy movie. And then Jezebel, I think also not a lot of people have watched, but it has Sarah Snook in it and I liked it. And then Last Shift came out in 2014 as well, which I really liked. And then they remade it, I think this last year, and it's called Malum. So it's a very, I mean, it was 10 years span, but I was surprised that they remade it. I haven't watched the remake yet. A couple more found footage movies of 2014. We have The Houses October Built, great Halloween movie, as well as VHS Viral. Not the best in the franchise, but I love the franchise overall. And then What We Do in the Shadows, mockumentary style, so I'm gonna say it's kind of found footage, right? It's a mockumentary. But obviously set the foundation for the incredible show. All right, we are in the top 3 years of the entire decade. Next up, we have 2012. This is going to be one of those placements that I think is a little bit controversial because of the movies that I decided were notable of the year or of the decade. But, you know, this is still my ranking at the end of the day. So feel free to disagree in the comments. Maybe I'll just start with found footage because there are a couple of them. We have The Bay, which is one of the most disgusting found footage movies you will ever see. The Devil Inside, not great, but still found footage, which means I liked it. And then we have Grave Encounters 2. We also have the franchise starter of VHS. And then we also got Paranormal Activity 4, which, unpopular opinion, I think is one of the better ones of the franchise. It's one that I like to rewatch. So great year for found footage, a lot of releases. But you might be thinking those are not good enough for 2012 to be ranked in the top 3. You're right, that's not why this year is ranked so high. I mean, personally, maybe, but 2012, Sinister came out. And I think it is one of the most iconic horror movies ever made. You might disagree and say it's not scary. That's great. It was, you know, rated as the scariest film of all time for a very long time. Maybe it reads a little bit dated now, but you cannot tell me it did not have an impact at the time and an impact on the genre as a whole. The Cabin in the Woods, one of my favorite dark comedies of all time, one of the most effective. Such a fun story, a little bit parody of horror, but it is one of my most rewatched movies in my entire collection. Would You Rather came out in 2012. This is a great like game kind of horror movie, but it also is very disturbing. The Woman in Black is one of my favorite gothic stories of all time, and I absolutely love the adaptation. It does feel dated, but that atmosphere is perfection. The first ABCs of Death was released in 2012. If you want disturbing, at least half of these are probably gonna get you. Now, a couple of my personal favorites of the year, we have Chernobyl Diaries. Again, one of my most rewatched comfort films in my collection. American Mary may not be rewatchable. Like, I don't think I've rewatched it since I watched it originally, but it's so dark and gory and such a unique movie. I really liked Prometheus. I thought this should have been its own standalone movie as opposed to an Alien movie. It's almost like they wrote it and decided to make it in the Alien franchise at the end, but I loved this one. Lastly, underrated pick is The Possession. Now, when it comes to possession movies or exorcism movies, we've seen it all, right? But I feel like The Possession did something really unique with it and something we haven't really seen before. It's a familiar formula, but the way that they do the exorcism story is different. Now, 2019, I have a love-hate relationship with 2019. This is ranked so high because of the sheer number of good movies that came out this year. However, it's ranked in second place because 2019 held some of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I can't ignore that. I feel like the good movies are better than first place, but I cannot rank it higher out of pettiness because you gave me so many bad movies 2019. You gotta go in second. So let's start with the bad ones, shall we? And I'm just gonna warn you, my opinions for some of these may upset you. Velvet Buzzsaw. What the heck was that? The Pet Sematary remake. One of the worst remakes I've ever seen. The Lighthouse. Listen, I appreciate the artistic choices. It was unique, but not my favorite Robert Eggers movie of all time, okay? Polaroid, not great. Maybe a guilty pleasure movie, you know, so bad it's good, but technically not a good movie. In the Tall Grass, another Stephen King adaptation. 2010s were also all over the Stephen King adaptations, by the way, and some of the worst ones, too. Happy Death Day to You. I'm just not the audience for it. I wasn't a huge fan. Brightburn, literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. The Black Christmas remake. Also one of the worst. Now, I know you're gonna want me to put the Child's Play reboot into this category as well. I liked it. I know. Unpopular opinion. I found entertainment value out of that movie and I did not hate it. Same can be said for 47 Meters Down Uncaged. Not a great movie, but I had fun watching it. The Curse of La Llorona. I also didn't hate. I think I gave it a pretty positive review when it came out, but I'm just gonna put it in this section of bad movies because I know a lot of people hated it. Ma, another movie, wasn't very good, but I liked it. But not a good movie. Now, let's get into why this year is actually ranked second, because there are so many. You're probably like, why the heck is this year so high if it had all those bad movies? Exactly, that's why it's not in first place, because of all of those. Dr. Sleep. I don't know if people dislike this movie, but I absolutely love it, and I think it is better than The Shining. I'm just throwing all my unpopular opinions out at you in one single year. 2019, like I said, love-hate relationship. Controversial year. Escape Room came out in 2019. This one is a comfort movie for me. I absolutely loved seeing this in the theaters. It was so much fun. The sequel is not great, but the original is really good. Haunt is one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time. Speaking of which, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark also is just like, again, has me written all over it, and I'm obsessed with that movie. Jordan Peele's Us came out in 2019, and I know, like I talked about, some of his movies are hit or miss for some people, and it's impossible to not compare his movies, but I really enjoyed Us a lot. I thought it was, again, a really unique story and so cool. Saint Maud, beautiful woman unraveling. What's not to love? Ready or Not, a really fun, dark comedy. I really liked it. Not sure about the sequel. I don't think it needs one. The Platform came out in 2019, which is a really great Spanish film. I also did like the sequel, by the way, that came out last year. It's not as good as the original because the original is just, it's great. It Chapter 2. I know some people did not like this movie. I liked it a lot. The horror worked so well. It was scarier than the original one for me. Next, we had The Lodge, which is the most depressing movie I have ever seen. And I think the most obvious choice for this year and why it was so good was Midsummer. I love Midsummer. You can see my little candle up there. I love Midsummer, okay? That one is my favorite Ari Aster movie, although I'm so excited for his next movie. Annabelle Comes Home came out in 2019, which I think is my favorite Annabelle movie, surprisingly. I think it's the third one, if I'm not mistaken. We also have Color Out of Space, which is a weird cosmic Nicolas Cage movie. And then we have Crawl, which is a great like disaster, fun alligator film. Wish they changed a lot of things about it. Never really thought I'd care that much about an alligator movie, but it was really good. And then finally, Vivarium. I still can't decide if I like it or not. I think it's too weird for me to actually say if it was good or not. I don't really know. And finally, in first place, we have 2018. And, you know, it comes in first place basically due to personal preference. So I know most of you are going to disagree with this ranking. First up, we have Hereditary. That is probably the most notable movie of 2018. And I think in general, Ari Aster has definitely left his mark on the horror genre, and it all began in 2018. Now, the Suspiria remake is one of my favorite movies from 2018. And I know my opinion is going to be negated because I have not seen the original still. I know, don't shoot me. But the remake, so good. Incredible cast. I loved it. Some personal favorites of the year, we have Annihilation, another cosmic horror. I haven't read the book, but I'm determined to read it this year. You can hold me to that. Next, we have Cam, which is a really unique like technology horror movie that I thought was really original and fun. Overlord used to be one of my favorite underrated movies to recommend. I never thought I would love a war horror movie, which there aren't many of, but Overlord was so good. I don't know why I like it so much because again, war horror, I don't really care that much. But this one was so good. The Strangers Prey at Night. I stand by the fact that this one is more entertaining than the original Strangers. They're two different movies, okay? One is an atmospheric psychological thriller. This one's a little bit more traditional horror movie and still has some of the most iconic scenes in the genre, in my opinion. Okay, 3 words. Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. Yes, that might be why 2018 is ranked first, okay? My second favorite found footage movie of all time. Now, the new Halloween trilogy began in 2018 as well. I really enjoy the trilogy as a whole. I think now that I've sat with it, each one, you know, we love to hate certain parts of it, but as a whole, I enjoy the trilogy. A Quiet Place also began in 2018 as well. Now, this year doesn't get off so easy, does not get a pass, because I know 2018, you had some bad movies too, and I haven't forgotten. Firstly, The Open House. I don't even know what that movie was. I hated it. The Possession of Hannah Grace I saw in theaters. And, you know, there's entertainment value in there, but it's not a good movie. I don't know if it's because I saw it in theaters that it you know, added to the movie experience, but The Nun, I'm just not a fan. I don't like the Nun movies. Truth or Dare, kind of a guilty pleasure type of movie. Unfriended Dark Web, I didn't really like this one. I love the original Unfriended. This one took it a little bit too far, made it a lot more unrealistic for me. The Cloverfield Paradox, worst Cloverfield movie by far, and you'd think I'd love it because space, but no. Now there are so many underrated gems of 2018, so we have to talk about those next. Firstly, What Keeps You Alive, which is by Colin Minihan, he was one of the brothers that did Grave Encounters. I thought this one was really good. We also have Unsane, which is, I don't want to say a found footage movie, but it's shot entirely on an iPhone, so it was very unique, very original. Next, if you want a really weird movie that you don't know what you're feeling after you watch it, watch Possum. Hellfest is a really fun Halloween festival type of movie. A little cheesy at times, but I think it's really fun. And then we have Ghostland, which is a movie that really affected me. If you're looking for something a little heavier and like more disturbing. A couple more bigger releases of the year were definitely Bird Box, which, you know, was a little bit more apocalyptic thriller than true horror, but it was pretty popular. And then we also have Insidious: The Last Key, which is such a sentimental movie for me because I got to go and meet the cast and crew. I got to meet Lee Winnell and Lynn Shay because of this movie. I flew down to LA. It was such a fun experience and such an iconic moment in my horror career that this movie will always be iconic to me for that reason. And then lastly, Climax. You know, it's a very weird, uncomfy movie, but it is good. I do recommend it. I will never rewatch it, but it's shot in one single take. It's a French dance movie. It's very weird and does get very disturbing. So there you have my ranking of the 2010s. I feel like it's not perfect. Having done the video, I feel like, again, I could still edit constantly and rearrange some years around, but I filmed it. It's going out into the world like that. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you would rank it, or if you have a favorite year or standout year of the 2010s, and make sure to request the next decade that we will rank in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.